Here's a challenge. By the end of this video, you're going to name the one trigger out of 6 that has quietly drained more money from your life than anything else. Not a guess. You're going to know exactly which one. And the reason you're going to know is because we're going to catch it in the act. So hold that thought. Your trigger is somewhere in this video. Pay attention. Now, think about the last time you bought something you didn't need. Not something you regret in a dramatic way, just something small. A thing that showed up at your door and you thought, oh right, I bought that. Maybe it was a gadget. Maybe it was a piece of clothing still sitting with the tag on. Maybe it was a subscription you signed up for during a free trial and quietly forgot about for 8 months. Here's what's strange. In the moment you bought it, you were completely certain you needed it. The feeling was real. The urgency was real. And then, somewhere between the confirmation email and the delivery notification, the certainty just evaporated. Where did it go? That question has a very specific answer. And it starts not in a shopping cart, but in a laboratory at the University of Michigan in the 1990s, where a neuroscientist named Kent Berridge was doing something that nobody had really done before. He was trying to isolate exactly where in the brain the feeling of pleasure comes from. What he found broke everything scientists thought they knew about desire. Berridge ran a now famous experiment where he blocked the dopamine receptors in rats' brains, essentially switching off their ability to feel the anticipation of reward. What happened next was not what anyone expected. The rats didn't stop wanting things. They kept reaching for food, kept pressing levers, kept seeking. But when the food arrived, they showed no pleasure, no satisfaction, nothing. The wanting and the enjoying were two completely separate systems, running in parallel, almost entirely disconnected from each other. And here is the part that should stop you cold. In humans, dopamine, the chemical everyone calls the pleasure chemical, does not spike when you get something. It spikes when you see something you might get. The surge happens during the scroll, during the browse, during the moment you add something to your cart and hover over the buy button. That is the peak. That is when your brain is firing hardest. The moment you actually buy it, the dopamine drops. This is why online shopping at midnight feels incredible and the package feels disappointing. Your brain already collected the reward. It spent the dopamine on the wanting. By the time the box is in your hands, the transaction is biologically over. You are holding the receipt of a feeling you already used up, and someone figured this out a long time before you did. Here is where it gets darker. Because what just happened to you in that shopping moment was not an accident. It was not a coincidence. It was the result of billions of dollars, thousands of engineers, and decades of psychological research, all aimed at one specific outcome: getting your ancient brain to act before your rational brain can stop it. Let's talk about that ancient brain for a second, because this is important. Your brain has not meaningfully changed in 200,000 years. The same hardware that your ancestors used to survive on the open savanna is the same hardware you are running right now. And that hardware was built for one world and one world only, a world where resources were scarce, unpredictable, and could disappear at any moment. In that world, hesitation was fatal. If there were berries on a bush, you ate them now. You did not think about whether you really needed them. You did not ask yourself if you already had enough berries at home. You took them because the alternative was that someone else took them, and tomorrow there might be no berries at all. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman spent his career mapping this exact system. He called it System 1, the fast, automatic, emotional part of your brain that makes decisions before you are even conscious a decision is being made. System 2 is the slow, rational, deliberate part, the part that plans and calculates and asks sensible questions. System 1 always fires first, always. By the time System 2 arrives at the scene, System 1 has already swiped the card. And here is what makes this not just interesting, but genuinely enraging once you see it. The entire architecture of modern retail, every dark pattern, every design choice, Every notification and countdown timer and red badge was built specifically to trigger System 1 and neutralize System 2 before it wakes up. Robert Cialdini, the psychologist who literally wrote the book on persuasion, mandatory reading in marketing departments worldwide, identified 6 triggers that bypass rational thinking almost completely. One of them is going to feel very familiar. Scarcity. Only 2 left in stock. Limited edition. Going fast. Your brain reads that not as a marketing message, but as a survival signal. Act now. Urgency. Offer ends in 14 minutes. Flash sale. Today only. That countdown timer is not informing you. It is triggering the same panic your ancestors felt watching storm clouds roll over the only food source for miles. Social proof. 10,000 5-star reviews. Bestseller. Most popular. For 200,000 years, copying what other people did was one of the most reliable ways to stay alive. If everyone is buying that thing, it must be worth having. Authority. Recommended by experts. Clinically tested, as seen on. Your brain defers to perceived expertise automatically. Ignoring your tribe's most experienced members in the ancestral world could get you killed. That deference got encoded deep. Reciprocity. Free gift, free trial, free sample. When someone gives you something, your brain generates real discomfort until you give something back. Ancient social bonding mechanics being weaponized to make you feel like you owe a corporation a purchase. Liking. The warm colors, the smiling face, the brand with values that sound exactly like yours. The entire science of modern branding is manufacturing that feeling from scratch. Now, go back to that thing you bought that you didn't need. Which one was active? Scarcity, urgency, social proof, authority, reciprocity, liking. One of them has a texture you will recognize. That is your trigger. The one quietly running your financial life. Without your knowledge or consent. That is your number. Here is the midpoint revelation, the one that reframes everything. You have been thinking about impulse purchases as a spending problem. They are not. They are an emotion problem wearing a price tag. Researchers at the University of Michigan studied thousands of impulsive buyers and found a pattern almost mathematical. People do not impulse buy when content, they impulse buy when bored. Anxious, out of control. Searching for one small moment of certainty in a day that feels shapeless. The purchase is not about the object. It is a painkiller. Fast, legal, socially acceptable. A way to feel that for 30 seconds. You are not stuck. Your ancient brain cannot tell the difference between buying something online and finding a berry bush after 3 days of hunger. Both feel like a small victory. Both release the same signal. You are going to be okay. The corporations did not create this vulnerability. They just found it, mapped it, and built an entire industry on top of it. So what do you actually do? Not willpower. Roy Baumeister at Florida State University proved willpower is depletable. The more decisions you make in a day, the worse your judgment gets. Resisting your trigger through discipline alone is like holding your breath indefinitely. You will eventually breathe. The answer is friction. Boring, unglamorous, devastatingly effective friction. Richard Thaler, Nobel Prize winner, proved one thing. Tiny barriers change behavior more than enormous intentions. Remove your saved credit card. Delete the shopping apps. Write down what you want. Wait 24 hours, then decide. Because in 24 hours, the trigger stops firing. The urgency dissolves, and System 2 finally gets enough time to ask the only question that matters. Is this filling a real need, or is this filling a feeling? Most of the time, it is the feeling. And the feeling has nothing to do with the thing in the cart. That gap between the feeling and the action is the only place your freedom lives. 1 second. That is all System 2 needs. And once it is in the room, the trigger loses its grip. Name your trigger, write it down, and the next time you feel that pull, say it out loud. Just the name, nothing else. Because the moment you name it, you are no longer inside it. They knew your trigger before you did. Now you know it too.